Welcome to the Ethics Experts, where we're elevating ethics and compliance and HR to the strategic level it's supposed to be.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ethics Experts. I'm your host, Giovanni Gallo, and I'm excited to have you here today. Thanks for joining us. And hey, if you're a subscriber, what a great day to be with you. Thank you for being here. And that's what you get with every episode of the Ethics Experts. If you're a subscriber, you get an extra special welcome. So hit that subscribe button, share the podcast, and let's spread the love. I am super excited to share with you today our conversation with Kari Mirabel. Hi, Kari. Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Super excited to have you on. We're going to talk about networking, and we're going to talk about recruiting, and we're going to talk about how industries change. But really, we want to talk about you, Kari. So let's start by, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what your career has been and how you got to this place where you are today?
Absolutely. Well, I'm Kari Mirabel, and I teach people how to network smarter. And I started out in my experience as an IT recruiter. And the funny thing is that during that career experience, I hated networking, which is the funny part, because if you would have told me when I was 19, 20 years old that I was going to make a career out of teaching people how to connect and build and sustain networks, I would have thought you were crazy, because when I was younger and starting out my career in the recruiting field, I didn't like talking to strangers and I felt awkward and uncomfortable. And what was happening though was I noticed that the people that I was working with were getting promoted and they were being advanced. And I was like, how are they doing all this? And a lot of people said, oh, I got this job through my network, or, oh, I met this person. And I was like, oh, I was so intimidated. I let fear kind of control my decisions back then. And so luckily for me, I met some mentors and they helped me out, and I learned a couple of strategies, which I'm going to share today.
Well,
and once I started practicing those things and I got some wins, oh man, I was addicted to networking. And I thought, man, if I could go from hating it so much to it prospering my career in recruiting, helping me meet amazing people, that shifted into, wow, I want to teach more people how to do this, because I realized networking was the pathway, to get from point A to point B faster.
Yeah.
Helping people. So being a contribution to other people and people being a contribution to me, wow, things just took off. And so from there, all the new platforms came in, LinkedIn and all these different channels to be able to connect with people, not just in the community where I lived and worked, but like all over the world.
Right.
It changed everything. So I ended up leaving recruiting. I got into career coaching because obviously a lot of the clients that I work with to help them transition need to know how to network to do that. And that evolved into one day my speaker agent was in the audience and she said, hey, do you have an agent? I was like, what's that? And that, I would love to take your message all across the country and teach more people. So then I evolved again, taking the skills that I enjoy, the things I'm passionate about. And that's when I came up with my signature keynote, Naked Networking. And so now I'm a keynote speaker and I travel all over everywhere, speaking at conferences and helping people learn these basic skills. And that's kind of where I am now. So I help companies and individuals learn how to network smarter for career advancement, for increased sales, extended brand awareness, you name it. Networking is a gift and it just keeps on giving. So that's my story in a nutshell.
That's awesome. That's so interesting how this thing that you hated and maybe dreaded and didn't want to do, and maybe tried forcing yourself to do some networking, and it didn't feel like it was working. Now you've not only built your career on it, but now you're helping other people do it. Tell us a little bit about that transformation, because I know that a lot of overgeneralization, but a lot of people in our industry, they're a little bit more introverted. They're a little bit more, kind of careful. And, I think a lot of people assume that, those type of people network, just, those gregarious, extroverted people who just, they could talk to anybody. Those people build a network, and I guess I got to just kind of do my work. So talk to me, that may not be your story, but talk to me a little bit about that transformation, because there really is so much that we can unlock in our careers and really just in our personal lives and our impact by networking well.
Absolutely. You hit it on the head. Where I was failing is I was not being my true authentic self. I went in, I'm an actress. I have to go through a script. I was being robotic. And what's funny is once I just let my guard down and I was like, you know what? I need to stop worrying about how to be interesting or how to come across interesting to people. I need to focus on being interested in other people. And that was a powerful shift in my career, because once you realize that networking is about helping other people first, that is when the shift changed for me. And then I started having fun helping other people get wins. And when you look at networking like that, it's less intimidating. And it's like, sure, there might come a time down the road where I might need something, but right now I just love paying it forward and putting positive energy into the universe. So because I started in the IT industry, I thought, you know what, that is, okay, let's be honest. A lot of IT people tend to be introverted.
Sure.
And I worked with thousands and thousands of those people that were so uncomfortable. And so what's interesting is I started doing my speaking at IT conferences, because those were the people that I felt needed my gift, see a need, fill a need.
Yeah, right.
And I want to give people who have an introversion nature to know that people always say, who's the better networker, introverts or extroverts? And I always say both, because, extroverts have like 3 mouths, and 1 ear, but introverts have 2 ears and 1 mouth, which means they're better listeners.
Yeah.
So networking is about listening to other people and thinking, how can I be of service to them? And so when I work with my introverted clients, I'm always like, everybody has a gift to share. And it's just a matter of using what you thought was a weakness as a strength. I'll give you an example. I work with a lot of people that say, I go to these networking events and I don't know what to say. I don't know how to approach people. I'm super nervous and I put my foot in my mouth and I look stupid and all this. And I say, you know what, let's use that as a strength. So if you go to a networking event and there's 3 or 4 people talking and you walk up to them and you are authentic and you say, hi, my name's Kari. I'm really nervous. I'm better at coding than talking to strangers. Would it be okay if I joined your conversation? That's using what some people perceive my nervousness as a weakness, as a strength. Because imagine if someone approached you with that, would you say, no, get away. We're not going to talk to you. Most people would say, sure, come on in. We don't bite. Tell us,
You're right.
It takes kahunas to admit your vulnerability.
Sure.
And most people will embrace you when you're authentic and when you're intentional.
Yeah.
So in my book, I have a chapter, Don't Call Me Lynn. There's a whole story about that, but it's about not being a cheesy, salesy kind of person, but being authentic and saying, hey, I'd like to ask you for help. Here's how. Be intentional. And then offer to reciprocate. I'd like to help you too. And, my biggest message is networking is about developing mutually beneficial relationships. And so it's a little bit of give. There's a season of giving and a season of receiving, right? Sure. And so when people start to get more comfortable in their skin, introverts or extroverts, because extroverts need to have some filters and reel it in a little bit sometimes, right? So I work with
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. That's my message to people is just be your true authentic self, be more interested in what the other people are saying, and ask yourself, how can I help them? And it'll start cutting the ice faster and starting to feel more natural. That's
great. Yeah, I mean, there's so much in there. Obviously, you're a pro at this, but you've talked about that vulnerability is a big thing, right? And a lot of people, I think implicitly or explicitly assume that being vulnerable and admitting that I'm not the most interesting person at this conference, well, that's a weakness. But I think if you look at it, that vulnerability is a strength, right? That you're strong enough to say, hey, you know what? I don't know everything. I'm not about to come in here and wow you with, a stand-up comedy routine and an insight about the industry and also offer you 3 new jobs. I'm not that person, but, I can hang out. And, I think that I imagine, that example that you gave of walking in and saying, hey, you know what? I'm a little nervous. I'm not great at this. Do you mind if I join you? A bunch of people were like, yeah, you know what? I am too. I'm not great at that either. Yeah, you know what? You belong here because we're like that too. Jump in. And even if they're not, even if they're all extroverted, they're like, great, a new audience member. You can listen to me.
Yeah, exactly.
And you said this other thing that I think is a really helpful reframe for this concept of networking, about how it's about giving and it's about listening. And, I think a lot of people in our industry, they're givers, right? We work really hard to care for our employees and to make sure that ethical actions are taken and make sure that people are protected. They care a lot and they want to give. And also, like, a lot of people in the ethics industry are great at listening, right? We do investigations and we listen to what's going on, and we put our ear to the ground and listen to the engine that is the culture of the company and try to figure out what's going on. I think a lot of us are naturally inclined to want to discover and understand, and you can do that in networking. It doesn't have to be a stand-up comedy routine.
Absolutely. Sharing knowledge. And, people think networking is about sales only. Okay. It's not.
Yeah.
It's about sharing knowledge and helping other people and finding other like-minded people. Mm-hmm. I mean, networking is amazing. It's a gift that I wish I would have learned earlier. So I have 2 boys. One's 21, the other one's 18.
Okay.
I drag them to these networking events with me, and they've both been on LinkedIn since they were 14 years old.
Cool.
And I think it's important because they're already using the skills that they're learning at an early age. So I invite your audience to take what they like and leave the rest from today's podcast, but to really think, like, what can you not only share, like absorb within, but what can you put into the universe? Do you mentor kids? Can you help your own children learn these things? Especially today's generation, they're so absorbed with social media and being on their phone all the time and things like that. And I'm teaching my kids how to go out into the universe and actually give the gift of their presence. And that is so important in networking. Yeah. Because when you're talking to someone and you get that sense that they're not paying attention. It's like Maya Angelou said, I'm going to mess up this quote, bear with me, but she said, it's people don't remember what you say or do, but they remember how you make them feel. Yep. So when you're not maintaining eye contact, or they're looking across the shoulder at the next victim, like, who am I going to talk to next? It doesn't make the person in front of them feel valued, And so I'll throw this out. One of the tips that I love is if I'm talking to someone and they start doing the look over my shoulder thing, or I feel like they're not engaged, I stopped talking. And I learned this from I learned this teaching, being a single mom of 2 kids, when I'm like, your grades or your room needs to be, and I noticed that I would stop talking and then they would look at me and then I would pick up that sentence again. So I'm like, it works with teenagers. Let me try it here. Okay. And so that's what I do in networking. If someone doesn't give me that respect, I let them know, my time's not to be wasted either. And I think that's the thing with networking, is you have to use discernment to figure out who is going to be worth your time to network with and who's not. Okay. And it sounds doggy dog, but that's business. You want to find those people that see networking as a mutually beneficial thing. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great point about who you network with. And I know you said that it sounds doggy dog, but it's a certain amount of personal respect. It's a certain amount of not wasting your time. And I think what you're saying, I don't want to speak for you, but what I interpreted from that is, when you're talking about who's worth your time, it's not, is this person an executive who can give me something, but it's, is this person someone who's going to engage authentically with me? And they might be entry level, they might be new to the industry, they might not have a great network. The scale that you're measuring, are they worth my time on, is, are they going to engage authentically and, be a good part of my network? Not, are they, a really high value person who, I want to have in my Rolodex.
Agreed. And, that's so interesting, because people ask me at conferences, where are the best networking opportunities? And I'm like, everywhere. I landed, oh my gosh. That's why you always want to have business cards on you. You always want to have your LinkedIn profile on your phone so you can do the QR code to connect with people instantly. I will tell you, some of the biggest deals that I've ever landed came from, I used to have an outdoor swimming pool at my house, and I like to work on my laptop by the pool. I got it like that. And the guy who cleaned my pool heard me on the phone talking to a client who was an executive at one of these really big, like Home Depot, Lowe's kind of thing. Okay. And he's cleaning my pool, and he says, what do you do? And so I start telling him. He goes, oh, wow. He goes, I clean the pool of the executive of the competitor, 2 blocks away. And I was like, excuse me? And so he ended up I said, hey, if I give you my business card and my client's resume, would you take it over there the next time you go and ask that guy to call me? And he was like, sure. That guy called me. We developed a relationship. He ended up interviewing, my client. And that all came from, Aaron, the pool guy.
Right.
And so you're absolutely right. Networking is a gift. And people always, I don't have anything to offer. That's not true. Everybody has something to offer someone.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with title or industry. It has to do with just being a good freaking human and figuring out how you can help. And remember, like, help could also come in the form of, my child is struggling. Do you have a recommendation for a therapist? Or, oh, my son plays baseball. Do you know anyone who could do this? Or, hey, I'm looking for a new church. Or, oh, hey, do you have a book that you would recommend? So I am looking at networking as an adventure. I'm always tapping into a spirit of curiosity when I meet someone. Like, wow, what can I learn from them? Young, old. My youngest client is 18. My most seasoned client is 72. Okay. And I love the diversity of what each person brings to the table. And that's how you have to look at networking is, where will this adventure go? I have no idea, but isn't it exciting to think about the possibility?
Yeah.
And sometimes those turn into the most amazing relationships, and sometimes it goes nowhere. Sure. And that's life.
Right.
And so when you accept networking for the ebbs and flows that it is, and what's crazy is the universe is in charge. So there are times when I've been intentional, like I have a 3-step networking strategy called plan, connect, and grow. Okay. And so in the planning phase, it's like, I want to get in front of this company and come hell or high water, I'm going to get in front of that company. And the universe takes me on a journey where I'm meeting all these people on the way. And guess what? Sometimes I never get to the end result because the universe wanted me to meet all these people instead of actually what I thought was my end result. So I just go with it. I let the universe take charge and see where it takes me. And that's where I've met some really amazing people, and I've been retained on some pretty cool projects all over the country and all through Canada as a result of that mindset. Yeah. So kind of crazy, but fun.
Yeah. It's cool. I think part of what you're saying is that, you can't enter networking assuming that you're going to be completely in control.
Absolutely. Oh, you're never in control. That's right. Never.
And you can't say, all right, I'm going to meet this person and I'm going to go to this conference just to meet this one person. I think, this is how I look at it. You can tell, you can help coach me if I'm off here. It's good to have a goal like that, right? In that planning phase, you say, all right, I'm going to kind of head in this direction and I want to meet this person, or I want to get 5 business cards or whatever it is. It's good to have something you're working toward instead of being completely unguided, but not being so wed to that outcome that, if I only get 4 business cards, then I failed. Well, no, you got more than 0, and you met some other people and you did some things that you didn't plan. And there's a lot of that opportunity in there, which I think ties into your story about the guy who was cleaning your pool. I think, there's a lesson there about being opportunistic, and, it can come from anywhere. But Kari, I also feel like there's a lesson in just, like you said, being a good human being and respecting people because they're people, right? You didn't give him some flippant answer of, I work with important people, go back to cleaning the pool. You said, hey, here's what I do. I'm sure you were kind to him and you were open. Oh, yeah. And, you've probably done that to 1,000 other people who haven't introduced you to an executive at a Fortune 100 company. That's right. But if that and what you were saying earlier reminded me of this quote from Zig Ziglar, who I love. And he said that if you go out to find friends, you're not going to find many. But if you go out to be a friend, you're going to find them everywhere.
That's right. Yeah. I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, if you want a friend, be a friend. Yeah. Meaning that goes back to that networking is about helping other people first. Yeah. And if you go into that, how can I be a contribution? And like you said, being an opportunist, seeing opportunity that most people miss, because networking, to me, one of the foundations that I talk about is commonality equals likability. And when people like each other, that's when trust starts to form. And when trust is between people, that's when the opportunities unfold. Because having come from the IT recruiting industry, I know that most of the really awesome, cool career opportunities come from the unpublished job market, i.e. your network, right? And so how do you find commonality with people? I love LinkedIn and social media platforms because you can do some research. And I love baseball. Like, I'm from St. Louis originally, go Cards. All right. And so I look for things on people's profiles like, they're a baseball fan too, or maybe they have an interest in, I'm a former ballet dancer, or, I love salsa music and things like that. So I'm looking for things I have in common with people. And when I reach out to them, I'm like, oh, hey, before we start talking about business, I noticed that you're a Cubs fan. So I want you to know that you're lucky to even be talking to me today, because I don't do with people that like the Cubs, ha ha ha. And so it's like when you just jump into it and you start talking about these things you have in common with people, and they're like, well, how do you know? Well, ask questions, do your research. LinkedIn is a great source for that type of thing. What kind of groups are you in? I live in Oklahoma, so we have OU and OSU. And so it's kind of like, this. So I joke, we like to have, friendly fun with that. And so there are things that you can find on people's profiles to connect with. And when you talk to people like you're having a beer at Chili's, if you will, one night, versus, oh, I have this script that I have to be perfect. I have put my foot in my mouth so many times over the years with networking. And it's those falls or those failures that I learned the most from. And I think failure for me, I'm stubborn. And so the universe has taught me some of my best lessons from failure. And really that's what networking is about, is the adventure, the fun. Like you said earlier, you can't be in control of it. The universe is. And there are people, sometimes people say, well, why did you help me? And I say, because the universe put you in my path. So I start off every morning, just, asking the universe, put in front of me the people that you think I can help. And Fridays are my favorite days, because I will literally, I feel like the universe gave me gifts, and I'm so lucky. I wake up every day in my career and I don't feel like I'm at work. Like, I'm like, I get paid for this? Like, it doesn't feel like work, because I'm so like, I love it. I love this stuff. And so on Fridays, I give back. So what I do is I scroll through LinkedIn looking for people that post things like, my spouse lost their job. I haven't been able to find, anything since COVID. I need help. My son this, my daughter that. And I look and I pick somebody every Friday to give my gift to offer like some consulting gratis.
Yeah.
Because that's my payback to the universe. And I'm telling you, it's kind of like my kids, when we go to restaurants, I'm like, okay, pick a table and we're going to pay for their dinner.
Okay.
And the kids look around and they're like, and I have to set boundaries, because sometimes they're like, the wedding party back there. I'm like, no. We're not that,
No, that's a lot of tables.
Exactly. But it's fun to teach, especially for me, to teach my boys how to be generous and give, and how, we love to sit back and watch the server come over and tell the person that their meal has been paid for, but we don't want to be identified. And so to watch and observe. So that's kind of that spirit of giving first. And I think once you learn that in networking, the world can be your oyster, because a lot of times when I go out and help people, they'll say, well, what's the catch? What are you trying to sell? You're trying to sell your book? You're trying to sell your videos? What are you trying to do? And I'm like, there's no catch. I'm giving you an hour of my time, because the universe gave me these gifts to do good with.
Right.
And so it's so fun to do that. And I encourage other people to do that, because I've met some really amazing individuals just by giving of my time. And I find, and tell me if you agree, when you put good into the universe, it usually comes back in some form or fashion, and so we treat people with respect, not always because they deserve it, because of their character, but because of our character.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, I buy that. You reap what you sow, right? And not every seed not every acorn turns into an oak. But if you're planting those seeds of kindness and goodness and helping people, it's not a transaction, right? It's not, hey, what was my ROI on that 10 minutes that I spent talking to that person? If you go into networking thinking that way, it's going to feel very transactional. It's going to feel very staid and aesthetic. And it's going to, you're going to kind of, I think it becomes very draining, because you're like, oh, well, that didn't work, so I got to go squeeze some more out of someone else. You can't do it that way. And, I think that spirit of kind of gratitude and giving, it feels a lot better, right? When you're authentically doing that, you can have the conversation about how terrible the Cubs are, because they are.
Oh, they are. They are.
Yeah. You can have that conversation and just enjoy it and just say, hey, you know what? Well, maybe my gift was just having a pleasant conversation with someone at this conference who, probably is nervous or, doesn't have a lot of friends here or whatever. And I didn't get a lot out of that, but you sow those seeds, and then some of them are going to sprout, and you're going to reap a harvest from some of them. But like you said, you can't really force it. So I think you reap what you sow. And part of, I think, this game in networking is you have to sow a bunch of those seeds. You have to be kind to a bunch of people. You have to be giving in a bunch of different directions, because it's not, it's not like a marketing game. It's not a sales
Right.
game of, well, if you're qualified enough to talk with me, then I'll spend 10 minutes and then figure out if I should spend more time with you if you have something that you're going to give me within the next 1 or 2 days. It's not like that. Which I think at times can feel like maybe you're wasting your time or like, why am I doing this? But you do enough volume of that and you do it the right way, and it's going to help, it's going to come back to you in some ways that you're not planning, but it's going to come back.
Yeah, and you hit it on the head. Like, I left a 6-figure corporate America job to start my own company because I wanted to be a stay-home mom.
Okay.
And what was interesting is in that experience, how you do mommies and me at the park, toddler, a lot of people that I used to know in business would ridicule me and say, why are you wasting your time networking with stay-home moms?
Ew.
And I'm sitting there like, are you kidding me? Because first of all, that's the hardest job on the planet.
Yep.
For me, it was raising 2
God
boys
bless
and
all you
giving
guys.
up. Oh my God, I was 3 months pregnant when I left a 6-figure salary job, 22 employees, to start my own thing so I could do my passion, which was be a mom. And I say to people, do you know why those stay-home moms get to stay home?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time it's because they're in a situation where their spouse is, financially they're able to do that.
Right.
So I met a lot of clients actually through that mom's group.
Cool.
Because I got to know them, they got to know me, and it's like, oh, let me introduce you to my husband. He is the vice president of da da da, and I'm like, oh, okay, great. So for people to judge a book by its cover, I'm learning those lessons in life. I feel like the best coaches are the ones that are coachable.
Sure.
And I'm constantly in a state of learning, and I find it interesting that the universe puts people in my life that are teaching me lessons that I never thought I would be open to learning, but that's why they're in my life, to teach me those things. And I think, you said earlier about, networking being a game. To me, it's an art, and you really, once you learn what it's truly about, the gift of abundance is there. Yeah. And that's when things open. And, in my book, I talk about naked networking. Naked is an acronym for the 5 mistakes most people make when they network.
Okay.
So naked stands for, N stands for neglect. People neglect to network until they need it. And then what happens? You're in a scarcity state, and you're running around trying to talk to all these people. I need this, I need that. Help me, help me, help me. And nobody wants to be with somebody that's needy or desperate. So you want to constantly be networking. You don't have to, I always tell clients, never stop. You can slow down, but you don't want to stop.
Yep. And
then A stands for afraid. We're afraid to talk to strangers, so we miss opportunities.
Yep.
So how do we face those fears and overcome those barriers? And so a lot of times it's just looking at your own triggers and getting that voice out of your head that says, you're not enough. What do you have to offer that person? Everybody has something to offer everybody, right? And a lot of times those fears are fake. They're perceived fears. They're not real fear. So you just have to sometimes do it like, you have a bleeper, right? Because to be truly authentic, I will tell you that I tell my clients all the time, I am scared shitless half the time, but I do it anyway. Okay. So I tell people oh, I'm scared shitless, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
Okay. And
that's kind of the spirit, right? K stands for knowledge. You have to equip yourself with a few strategies, like the plan, connect, and grow. To be able to go up to people and have like a tagline. Hi, I teach people how to network smarter. What do you do? Oh, well, what does that mean? Oh, well, I do keynotes, master classes, and one-on-one coaching.
Right.
So that's how I impact people and help them increase sales or expand brand awareness or find new careers. What do you do? And just having those little go-tos, if you will, to kind of help you with conversation. E stands for engage. And we talked about this earlier. If you approach somebody like a slimy salesperson, they're going to feel that. And, people repel. Be authentic. Say you're scared, say you're nervous, say, I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm a software developer by nature. I'm better at that than this, but it's nice to meet you. So that's important. And then the last one is D, dedicate. Okay. You've really got to invest in new habits for them to stick. Okay. So I teach people how to network in 15 minutes or less per day. You give me 15 minutes a day. Okay. And by the end of that week, by the end of that month, you'll be surprised at how little 15 minutes can impact the people in your network and how you can help them and they can help you. So
yeah, that becomes like 250 hours over the year.
Oh yeah. And then gamify it. And what I find is that once you start getting a few wins, then you naturally increase that time that you do it. But starting off, it's just 15 minutes. So that's kind of the premise behind Naked Networking is the challenges that I've experienced in my career. Those are the 5 that people struggle with the most.
Love it.
And then, of course, the whole vulnerability. Sometimes when we're naked, we feel uncomfortable, we feel self-conscious and things. And so we talk a little bit about those feelings as well. So hopefully that'll help your audience if they can relate to any of those 5.
Yeah. I so appreciate you walking us through that because, I think that anyone who has, reticence to network or maybe has felt like they failed at it or, they're just not in it. They can probably run through that acronym NAKED and say, hey, you know what, that's a big problem for me. I'm always very afraid of this. Or, what, I've never really been dedicated to it. So I act like it never works, but, I just kind of, try every now and then. So it's probably not going to work. So that's awesome. Right. I'd love to take this into kind of this concept of internal company networking. Part of why I wanted to bring you on, Kari, is, a big part of it was I love your content. I love what you teach. I love the way that you come across and the goodness that you put into the world. And, the other side of that coin is I think that a lot of ethics experts can benefit from understanding how to apply these principles for networking internal to their company because we're, as ethics and compliance professionals, we're getting more airtime. We're getting more of that seat at the table. We're getting more authority and influence in the organization. And part of how we're going to achieve our next level of success within our organization and our career is having those kind of cross-functional bonds to someone in HR, someone in manufacturing, someone in the IT team, because that's going to not only help our own career, but help us run and launch our programs by meeting some people who, quite frankly, Kari, we don't have an immediate need to ask them to do something for us or something that we have to offer them right now, but we need to build those bonds so that, 3 months or 3 years later when we're running a program and we need someone over there to help us test it out or something like that, that we have those bonds. So can you help us kind of apply this internally to the company?
Yeah, absolutely. I spoke at Warner Media in New York City, and it was interesting. They brought me in because it was like every floor was a different, like one was CNN, one was Cartoon Network, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And it was interesting because, they had the same challenge. And it was like, well, why isn't Cartoon Network talking to the people over at CNN or HBO or whatever? And it was like, because they had a perceived mindset, like, well, you guys do cartoons, or, how can we help each other? So I think that is a common issue within a lot of companies, what you're describing. So my advice is to have a spirit of curiosity, right? Because you can learn something from everyone. And we tend to kind of isolate people. Yeah. So we tend to isolate and kind of stick around people who help us feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to take a risk. And when you see someone who you don't recognize or you don't know, introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Kari. I work over in, accounting. What's your name? What department do you represent? What do you do? And then also having a spirit of, what can I do to help support you? Or, kind of just offering it up. If there's ever anything I can do to be of assistance, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to, message you so we have each other's contact information, you or anybody on your team. So look for people that you don't recognize or don't know and be the first to introduce yourself, extend a hand, show kindness, and then get curious about what they do. What are their contributions to the company? And then also kind of, plan, connect, and grow. The connect piece is step 2. I know it sounds kind of weird at first, but exchange emails and just be like, hey, it was nice to meet you today. Here's a little bit about what I do for the company. Would love to know a little bit more about you. Would you like to go on break together? Or could we have a lunch? Or could we just have a 10-minute conversation? I want to learn more about how to be a contribution to the company that I work for. Mm-hmm. And part of that is better understanding the company holistically. Yeah. So I want to work outside of the IT department or the HR department or the accounting department to meet other people, because I think that's important. And you're going to have some people that are going to go, I don't. Yeah. Okay. But you're going to have those that are like, wow, thanks. Yes. And then, like you said, you're creating a short list down the road so that if you have a challenge and you need help, you've got, this list of people you can reach out to and say, hey, remember when you told me da da da, I'm having this issue with my expense report or whatever, would you help me? And they're going to remember that spirit of kindness that you showed.
Yeah.
So when you have a company picnic, try to meet people. When you're in the break room, try to, oh, I don't know that person. Let me just go, hi, I'm trying to learn, more people that work here and how we can help each other. So again, that mutually beneficial relationship, but the plan, connect, and grow, that 3-step strategy. Once you've made that connection, that third piece is grow. Okay. What can I do to help that person? So when you're talking to a new contact at a company that you work for, maybe they mention, my son got hurt in soccer. He has to have a surgery, maybe follow up. Hey, how did your son do? A few weeks later, does your family need anything right now? It's like people remember that kind of thing. So as you're meeting new people, have a spreadsheet or notes or something where you can write little things down to help you remember. Yeah. And then, have that kindness in your heart to be able to be a good human and follow up and help. Yeah. Because, a little bit of kindness can go a really long way. So don't miss those opportunities, get curious and continue to grow those relationships. And a lot of times it's how can you get in front of people without trying to sell something, or it's always about what I want. I want a job. Can you help me find a job? That just pushes people away. Right. But growing the network is always like checking in, fair weathered friend. I think I was successful with my business partner in IT recruiting for so many years because a lot of companies that were in a hiring freeze, we would call them and they'd say, oh, well, we're not hiring right now. We don't need you. And we'd be like, we're not calling for that. How are things going? How are our people performing? DEI right now is huge. Like, this across a lot of companies. And I'm very proud. I'm very big on empowering other people. And so I'm very proud that my business partner and I were able to go into companies and bring in the first minority, bring in the first female executive, things like that, all of those things early on, because it was that spirit of, act of kindness and plan, connect, and grow. So not being a fair weather friend, but reaching out to those people and saying, hey, I know you don't have a need right now. I'm just checking in. How are you? Yeah. How are things going? How can we help? And seeing those opportunities to speak and bring truth to power. I'm lucky as a consultant. I can say things to C-level executives that I get a lot of looks in the room like, did she just say that? And I'm like, yeah, I'm paid to help you. How come there's no females on your staff? How come this? How come that? And bringing that awareness to people is important because, and networking can help us do that. Because if I go out and talk to a bunch of people that work at a company and find out people are kind of complaining about the same thing, right? I want to be able to be that voice to help, bring that awareness. And so so networking is like such a gift. It's not just about me getting what I want. It's about identifying opportunities and helping people. And that grow piece of the 3 steps is the one most people struggle with. Yeah. It's like they know who they want to talk to and why. They make the connection, but then they drop off. And that's not how you want to be. And so people say, well, I have 800 people on my LinkedIn network. I can't call 800 people every month. You don't have to. When you post content, when you post a blog, when you engage and like and share and comment on other people's content, that's networking.
It's helping.
Yeah. And you're able to like put your name and your character in front of other people and help them. Yeah. And so I call that ping your network. Okay. So being active and sharing your knowledge and helping people helps them keep you front of mind. Yeah. And that's the grow piece. So I'm sorry I went off on a tangent, but
that's great.
That plan, connect, and grow is something that internal employees can really embrace as well when they're trying to meet people from different departments and help them too.
Yeah. I love it. Thanks for walking us through that. I think, that plan, connect, grow format and approach, we can apply it within our company. I'd love to dig in a little bit more on that grow piece because, I think that it's something that I've learned as I've learned to network, and I think it's something that might be one of the hitches. I'm not sure how it kind of crosses over with the NAKED acronym, but I think that grow piece is probably where a lot of people kind of fall short, not just on the follow-up, but like, why am I talking to this person, right? Like, why am I spending my workday? I have work to get done. They have work to get done. I'm just asking for a chat. I don't have like a direct offer, right? I'm not coming over and saying, hey, I have a candidate for you, or I have a solution to your problem, or here's some code for you to put into, the software. I'm not offering anything right away, or maybe even, maybe you end up getting there, but I don't know going into the conversation how I'm going to be able to help this person. I think it's great to have this. Networking is for helping, not demanding things of people. That kind of lowers the barrier of like, okay, I can go out to be a friend. But I'd love to dig in a little bit more, kind of what does that look like when I go to the marketing department, or I go to the safety or the transportation department and say, hey, I'd love to chat. I imagine to a certain extent, you can just throw some of that out there and have a nice conversation with somebody and just kind of plant that seed. But I imagine it gets a lot stronger when, you do something that's kind, or you can be helpful. How can you help us kind of lower our fear or concern that I'm just wasting everyone's time, and I'm not a very chatty person, so we're just going to kind of sit around and talk and nothing's going to come of it. How can we break that down for people?
Right. So earlier we talked a little bit about, just kind of that spirit of vulnerability and saying, I'm nervous. I'm not good at this. Can I join your conversation? And how most people will embrace that. So with this, it's the same concept. It's, look, for whatever reason, the universe put us in the same room at the same time. So I don't know how, I don't know when, but somehow, some way, I just want to be on your radar, that if you need anything, I'm here. And hopefully the other person will say the same, right? Because it's that reciprocal relationship. So imagine that you meet someone in accounting and you're in IT in the break room, and you recognize that person. Now you know them by name. Now you're in the parking lot 2 weeks later and they're walking out with someone else. And you're like, oh, hey, Karen, how are you? It's good to see you. How have you been? Oh, I've been great. Oh, by the way, this is John. He works with me in the accounting department. Oh, hey, John, how are you? I'm Kari in the IT department. Now you've met two people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's that face recognition at the lunchroom or at the employee conference, or, anything along those lines. And then the next thing you know, all the accounting people are together in a circle, and you walk over because you see Karen and John, and then they introduce you to the rest of the people. And then you're like, hey, if I can do anything, sometimes it's like you just have to put it out there in the universe, like consider the possibilities. I don't know how. I tell that to all my audiences. You have the potential to change my life, and I have the potential to change yours. I just don't know when or how or what that's going to look like, but I'm putting it into the universe.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. You don't have to know you don't have to attach to an outcome or know what the end result's going to be, but just putting yourself out there. You never know, because maybe Karen's computer breaks one day and she calls over to IT and she doesn't get the help she needs.
Right.
Oh, but she's got your LinkedIn profile or your contact information. She calls you, hey, remember when you said you would help me? I can't figure this out. And then, wow, now you see, and so relationships take time to cultivate.
Yep.
And so you can't, I tell my clients, it takes time, it takes patience, persistence, right? And practice.
Okay.
So I think you hit it on the head earlier. A lot of people think networking is like the one night stand.
Right.
It's more like the marriage. Sorry to be crude.
Yeah, that's fine.
But it's you can't meet somebody and expect in 24 hours you're going to sign a multi-million-dollar deal. Sometimes the best relationships, like you give, and it may be 3 or 4 or 5 years later when they reciprocate. But if you have an expectation of someone that they're going to immediately, give back what you gave, that's where you fail. So you can't have any expectations. You just put the energy into the universe, and you don't have to have it all figured out. Just like, look, I'm here. This is what I do. If I can help you, let me know.
That's all it takes.
It's as simple as that.
Easy. That's awesome. I love that. Thanks for sharing that, because, I think that that a lot of people don't do networking because they think we have to have a clear exchange and it has to happen quickly. And it kind of it can be neither of those for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And it can be unequal, right? It can be me helping you a bunch and you're not giving anything back to me. And you know what? I'm fine with that because I'm helping and I'll get it back from someone else, or maybe not. And I'm happy to just be helpful. So it doesn't need to happen right away. Go ahead.
Right. It's that fear stuff too, that trigger. You have to stop and think, what is that voice in my head that's telling me I'm not enough, or I don't have value, or I'm wasting someone else's time? We're all adults. If you're wasting my time, let me be the one to tell you, I don't have time for this. You're wasting, but until someone says that to you, you could be the biggest blessing that they've had all day and you just don't know it. Right. So I think it's an opportunity too. Networking has been interesting because it creates a space for us to look at our triggers. I grew up in a situation where my mom had to talk. I talk about this in my TED talk. My mom was a school teacher and she hated her job. It was
Oh,
toxic. And so I grew up in a home where I basically watched my mom come home every day and she had a calendar by the phone and a red Sharpie and she'd go, 87 days left of school. And I'm like, God,
oh,
what a miserable existence. I don't want that in my life. Right.
mm,
And so I was kind of always taught, you have to do a job. You have to go work is like,
suffer through it.
oh yeah. And so sometimes when I was, well, I even have triggers now that I have to deal with. Let's be honest. They never go away. You just learn how to face them.
Yep.
But it's like, gosh, that voice in my head that says I'm not enough or I don't have anything to offer. I have to stop and put that in check. Oh, I know that voice. I love my mom, but that's my mom's voice, right? And
Mm,
that's not what's happening right here. There's no saber-toothed tiger coming to like attack me. This
mm-hmm,
is just me spinning because I'm afraid that maybe I will let this person down. So therefore I will do nothing.
mm.
And so what happens when we suppress? The universe just keeps manifesting over and over until you face that fear.
It's interesting.
And so sometimes you just have to, like I said, be scared, but do it anyway. Do
Mm,
it with fear. And then
yeah.
once you do it once, you get better, and then twice, and that kind of thing. So networking, again, it's not only about meeting people that can help you and you can help them, but it can also be life lessons.
Yeah.
Maybe you're meant to face a fear. And that's a gift that networking taught me too, because like I often thought I wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And then I realized, no, I have things to offer. And so getting that little voice in my head in check really kind of was a life lesson. So networking is just, I mean, like, gosh, every turn, it's been such a huge blessing and a gift in my life. And I know it can be in everyone's.
Yeah.
So I'm on a mission to create a movement of people who are willing to take those same risks to see what kind of outcomes they can get to.
That's beautiful. I really love that. Yeah. And, I think we're getting on the couch a little bit here, which I'm fine with. But a lot of this stuff that's keeping us from jumping into doing networking or helping people or putting ourselves out there, it's a story that we're telling ourselves, right? We're telling
Yes.
ourselves, oh, this person is going to reject me because they don't think I'm worthy or worthwhile. And that person's not saying that. You're putting those, you're projecting that onto them. And you can
Yeah.
clean some of that up. And to your point, engaging in this can be some work that you do on yourself where you say, hey, you know what, I'm going to try it and see if I get thrown out of the office or, someone rejects me. You said earlier that in our prep time that if you don't do anything, you already have a no. If you
Yeah.
engage, you might have a 50-50 chance to get a yes. So,
That's right.
jump in. If you don't do anything, then the answer is going to be no, right? You don't ask, you don't get. So you're already there. You
Yep.
like it's almost like you're already rejected because they're not calling you up. So it's not going to get worse than that. You
I-
go and say hi and they say, I'm busy. Well, then our interaction is the same as if I didn't say hi. So that's fine. I'm right
Exactly.
where I was.
Yeah. And that's good. Rejection. I would say 9 out of 10 clients I work with, one of the first things they say is that fear piece.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I'm afraid of rejection. And I always try to get them to pivot how they look at rejection,
Mm-hmm.
because I like to say that, the right opportunities will reject you. The right people will reject you.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is, my TED Talk is called Career Dating.
Mm-hmm.
So I talk about dating your career and falling in love with what you do, and how there's a similarity between dating in the real world and networking and career transition and things like that. And so what that means is, I have my eye on this super hot guy over there that's, oh my gosh, I gotta have him, da, 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 and he keeps rejecting me because the universe is like, we're not going to give you what you want. We're going to give you what you need.
Okay.
Right. So that looks pretty, but what you really need is a good man who can provide and do this and this and this. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's funny because while you're sitting in the corner crying about what didn't come, the universe is laughing because they're like, you were never going to get that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I always tell people when they go out and interview for jobs and they don't get the job, I'm perfect for it. That's the job I wanted, but I didn't get it. And then they go home and beat themselves up. It's like, no, the universe has something bigger and better for you. It's coming. So the right things will reject you. The right people will reject you because there's something better coming.
Okay.
Right. And it's like, what do they say about be thankful for unanswered prayers?
Okay.
Like, or be careful what you ask for.
Yeah.
So when you kind of look at it like, when you're able to diversify your portfolio, when you have, like, let's say you're trying to network because you want to go work at Disney, and the 3 people you met at Disney are like, I don't have time for you. I'm not going to talk to you. A lot of times people abandon the idea. And I'm like, no, do you know how many other people might be open to helping you. So
Right.
don't give up, keep trying, because the right people will embrace you for your true authentic self and help you. And the ones who weren't supposed to be in that path,
Yep.
they'll reject you naturally. So like I try to get people to look at rejection as a good thing in a weird kind of way,
Yeah.
to spin that effect, to not be so afraid of it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, because, if it didn't happen, it didn't happen, right? And that doesn't mean that your life is over. It's just, well, like, you didn't get that now. So you know that, and you can learn something from it, and you can keep trying, or you can pivot, or you can try somebody else, or you can wait. But,
Right.
We were talking about that grow piece, the third step in your approach. And, you said that those things take time to grow. It takes time to cultivate that. And it's not going to be kind of one for one. It's not going to be a contractual relationship. For every 5 minutes that you spend together, there's going to be an even exchange of value. But if you go out to be a friend, you're going to find a lot of friends. And you've helped us kind of see some of the things that keep us from networking, to understand some of the things that we can do to just be kind and be helpful and be engaging, and just, have this spirit of curiosity to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I can be helpful. Maybe 3 years from now, this person will be able to help me with a problem, or maybe I can just be an encouraging person in their life today. And, I think what I try to encourage people when talking about this is, networking does not need to be like everything else in your life. There are a lot of things in your life that are transactional. When you go to the gas station, you put your card in, or you pay some money and you get gas. That's very transactional. A lot of
Right.
things in the core part of your job are very performance oriented. And I need to make sure that I make this progress this week, and I hit my project plan, and I get this thing done because I'm evaluated on it. You can enjoy getting into this networking mode and let it be something different, that you don't have to mark progress and say, okay, 3 days from now, 10% of this thing needs to be done. Just let it be at a time where you're curious and you're exploring and you're trying to be helpful, and you're not limiting yourself by, measuring it against, some yardstick or something.
Right.
But, let it be different, because it doesn't have to be as transactional as the gas station, or as performance-oriented as the core part of your job. But
Right.
if you're exploring, and, I love what you said, Kari. You said that, this isn't a game, it's an art, right? And art is about what? It's about beauty and creativity, right? You're creating something. And if you look at networking that way, a lot of your job may be like a game. It may be like a contest. It may be like a competition. It may be these things that you have to get done. Well, let this be a little side pot where, whatever you said, 15 minutes a day, you know what? You're creating something. You're doing something beautiful. You're doing something kind, and let it be a balance instead of forcing it into the framework of, a bunch of other things that you do.
That's right. Beautifully said,
All
my
right.
friend.
Well, you're teaching me well. You're coaching me well right here.
Love it.
As we wrap up, Kari, how can people get in touch with you? Is there anything that you want to kind of leave us with as we wrap up here?
Right. So I would love to invite your audience to check out my website. It's www.karimirabal.com. And I'd love to invite people to check out my TED Talk, Career Dating. I'd love people to check out my book, You Already Have the Know, based on Naked Networking Keynote. It's on Amazon. And I'll just leave your audience with, I would like to challenge them to take new risks and consider new possibilities, because, networking was a gift that I never expected to give me all of this abundance. So, a long time ago, I made the decision to get naked, if you will, and really take a risk.
Yeah.
And boy, did it pay off. So, if you can do all of that for somebody like me who hated it, I think it can help your audience. So think about ways that you can network smarter, apply the 3-step strategy, plan, connect, and grow. Consider how you can be more interested in people versus worrying about being interesting, yourself as you're talking to people. And think about how you can use a weakness as a strength,
Cool.
i.e., I'm nervous. I don't know what I'm doing. Can I talk to you?
Yeah.
And receive the gift that other people will give. So if I can be of assistance to anybody in your audience, they're more than welcome to email me or message me or follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I'll be happy to help.
Awesome. Well, it's been a blessing for you to be with us today, Kari. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for sharing your insight and your experience and your advice with us. I really hope that some people in the audience can take these and put them into practice, not just to improve the way that they operate their compliance and ethics program. Do that. not just to improve their career, do that, but also I think there's a lot of chance to grow as a person and to, understand yourself better in the context of these different conversations as you do networking. And I think that what you've blessed us with today, Kari, can help people build their company success, build their career success, and build themselves up as a person and as a professional. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome fun. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, that's the show today, folks. Thanks for joining us on The Ethics Experts, brought to you by Compliance Line. I'm your host, Giovanni Gallo. We've had Kari Mirabel here talking to us about networking. Put this into effect to grow your career, to help build your leadership as a compliance and ethics professional, and to grow as a person. Go out there to be a friend, and you'll find lots of friends. Thanks for joining us.